speaker in a few short words, and I'll let him do all the talking because I know that all of us here today are here to listen to Mr. Nirvana Chaudhary. So, Nirvana Chaudhary, who is he? Nirvana Chaudhary is an avid sportsman, an avid trekker, a music producer, an entrepreneur. He is a man of many different hats, and he's also a doting father of two amazing kids. And we've had a lot of fun today with all the kids and family playing together. This is Mr. Nirvana Chaudhary, and we're looking forward to hearing him speak. So, Mr. Chaudhary, Nirvana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nader Shez, for inviting me to the first ever session of Real School. Like you correctly said, an entrepreneur constantly is looking for those moments, for that environment where sometimes the best opportunities come out in the state of chaos. The entire theory and concept of yin yang revolves around what you guys have done and the formation of Real School. So I'd like to firstly start off by congratulating you guys for starting off with this. I personally feel that this is going to go a long way, and this is something that is really needed in today's day and world. All of us have our different roles and responsibilities and the hats that we wear in our daily lives. And I think a platform was definitely missing where people with experience, normal people, would be able to share their views, their experiences, and we could learn from that. I myself, I have been very fortunate to have been growing up in a business family. My father himself is very versatile. He's a politician to someone who's a sportsman to a musician as well. So someone I looked up to. And growing up in a business family taught me a lot of values. And today, I've been in working for the last 18 years in our company, or I'd rather say, let me rephrase by saying that I founded my first company 18 years ago. But there's a lot that I've learned. And it gives me immense pleasure in sharing some of the things in this journey of life that I've learned as an entrepreneur, as a human being, as a father, as a philanthropist, social worker, that I wanted to share with you. And Real School is the platform, I think, where you have people around the world, also sharing their views, absorbing the experiences, and hopefully, I really hope at the end of my talk, it helps people change their perspective or help them in their daily life. So I'm going to immediately start off with some of the very important things I learned at a very, very young age. When I was 15. So growing up, I was always really inclined towards sports, creativity, art. But coming from a business family, I have two younger brothers. I knew that there were certain expectations out of me being the eldest that, okay, my father always said, no matter what you do, make sure that you're the best at it because you're doing it from your heart, you're passionate about it. But I think that particular benchmarking or that particular direction was towards me was more about saying, no matter what your brothers do, you're expected to carry on in the business world. So I understood that at a very, very young age. If it wasn't for that, today I'd probably be, a professional squash player or a Formula One driver or someone who being heavily inspired by Mario Puzo's Godfather. I'd probably be in that line as well. But who knows? I learned at a very, very young age a couple of things which I want to share with you. And the first most important thing I learned was, the power of simplicity. I was 15 years old and I was doing my A-levels in London. A lot of my friends used to come back home during the holidays, but because I had absolutely no interest or no idea in business world, I knew that if I had to go back home one day and start getting involved in my family business, I had to start really early. So I through my friends, I started to get some work experience. My first work experience was in a particular investment bank called Donaldson, Lufkin & General, DLJ, which got later acquired by Credit Suisse. And I asked my friend's mom, please just give me some internship over here. And she put me through the various different departments of investment banking, mutual funds, hedging, bonds, forex, etc. Different instruments would be, just to give me an idea. And after about 2.5, 3 months of my experience there, she hands me a $8 million portfolio, $8 million real money. This is not Yahoo money or virtual money. Saying, here, Nirvana, I want you to manage a portfolio out of it. And you can hedge it 2-3 times. You can use this various instruments. You can particularly use this emerging market mutual fund we've created, and there were hundreds and thousands of such that a 15-year-old, probably because I was very naive at that time, lost as well at that time, overwhelmed also at that time. I started asking myself questions like, okay, this would be probably money, of someone who's himself must have worked day and night to earn this, entrusting in a bank like DLJ, not knowing that a 15-year-old will be managing that portfolio, will be having a decision-making power for that. So I asked myself some very simple questions like, okay, what if there was a world war that happened? What were the industries that were absolutely gonna survive and thrive? And at that time, this was in the year 1998. I said, no matter what happens, people are not going to stop eating, right? So obviously, coming from a business family who has core competencies in food, I was anyways well aware of companies like Nestle. So I did a lot of research on companies like Nestle, Kellogg's, Unilever, but I was doing primarily more research on their CEOs and founders, who had the kind of vision they had, which they gelled with me in terms of a much more longer term perspective that they had. So I said FMCG. Nokia, I don't know if you all remember, but Nokia phones had just come out and that was becoming a rage. And I said, this is only going to grow. So I put 25% of my money in Nestle, 25% in Nokia, and 25% in a company called Tyco that was investing in emerging markets in energy and infrastructure, where coming from a country like Nepal, I know that, with lack of electricity and lack of infrastructure, there would be companies doing a lot of work in that. And obviously there's a lot of opportunities for that. And 25% I kept in a capital protected deposit. 6 months went by and the world saw one of the worst, the bubble that burst in the capital market, where the entire capital market was down about 45%. My boss's portfolio was down by about 85%, but my portfolio was up by about 25%. Although she got the bonuses for that, but that's what made me really realize the power of simplicity. We talk about these astronauts from NASA going to the moon and not able to find a anti-gravity pen and spending millions of dollars, trying to find a pen that works in the moon. And what did the Russians do? They just used a pencil, right? So, the entire power of simplicity really got to me at a very, very beginning, very early age of my life. The second thing that happened to me at the same age was, while I was working in the investment bank during the daytime, at nighttime I used to work in this restaurant, a Nepali restaurant, and obviously missing home food a lot. I told the restaurant owner, you know what, I'm going to work every night here. I'm just busy towards the evening. Just give me one meal and give me £1 a day. The basic fundamentals of a business, whether it's a billion-dollar company or a restaurant, are the same. You have the input, output, raw material, finished product, the organization structure, customers, etc. The dynamics are different, environment is different, but the basic fundamentals are the same. So I got to learn a lot from there. But second thing I learned at the very at the age of 15 was one of my most valuable things that till date I have with myself is that 68 pounds that I have with me, which taught me the value of money. I think the entire essence of understanding the value of money is having a sense of frugality in your attitude to your daily day in life, in the way you perceive things. If you're able to, it's a lot of people mistake that for being stingy or not preserving and conserving everything, but having a frugality mindset, like an example like Warren Buffett, I felt was very, very essential to becoming a very successful entrepreneur going forward. The fundamentals, the entire foundation one needed to have, I sort of discovered that myself, which I wanted to share with you. Anyway, time went by. I was 18. I graduated from school. Instead of going back to going to schools in London or the US, I decided to come closer to Asia, and I went to SMU. And I was a pioneering student. The batch of the pioneering student were there. Phenomenal opportunity. It really gave me a good sense of an Asian business culture, how businesses work. Sort of the people I met. I'd been away from Asia most of my life, so that was a great sense. For me, by the year 2001, 2002 came. I had to leave Singapore because Nepal was going through our peak of our Maoist insurgency. There was massive civil war that had broken down in Nepal. My father, who was the founder of the company, wanted to expand the businesses outside, so he needed someone to come back in. My brothers were still studying, and I had to leave my studies at SMU halfway after just spending a year and a half, and I went back to Nepal. 19 and a half, 20-year-old going from one end of Nepal to the other, getting that exposure of Singapore and the West, and you'd have dozens of buzzing ideas what you want to do, but we're at a peak of our civil war. And my father kept saying, no, you've got to continuously prove yourself. And he kept putting me in companies that wasn't really performing. Because he's saying that's the only way you could accelerate yourself within the organization and gain that respect. And I was loving it because to me, yes, there was a war going on, but to me, it really gave me a great sense of seeing what Nepal was really made of. For me, it gave me a great sense of really understanding our companies at a grassroots level. For me, it gave a sense of seeing different sectors which we were not present in at that time, but it clearly had an opportunity. So for about a year and a half, 2 years, I was just behind the sales van going from one end of Nepal to another, and that was a great learning for me. But I remember very distinctively after a year and a half, having worked in a couple of companies and the companies that started taking a U-turn, I told my father, I said, listen, I've got this idea, that idea, I need funding for it, please help me with it. So he said, why, if you think you're so capable of starting these businesses, arrange the funding yourself. I said, yeah, but, I need to go to someone. I can't go to a third party saying that, I need funding for my business. He said, you got to prove yourself. I said, how do I do that? So the third thing I want to share with you all is a story that my father told me, which I want to share with you. He asked me, I still remember we were in central western Nepal and we were driving towards Kathmandu, our hometown. And my father asked me, do you know who John D. Rockefeller is? I said, of course, the whole world knows who John D. Rockefeller is. So while growing up, he wasn't always born with a silver spoon. He worked hard and became one of the most successful entrepreneurs the world's ever seen. So while growing up, he had a really close friend of his whose name was David. And David had a son whose name was Tim. So he told Tim the same thing. Do you know who John D. Rockefeller is? And he's like, I grew up with him. He's a childhood friend of mine. My health is not too good. But if you feel in life you ever need something, just tell him you're my son and he's going to help you out. Anyway, a couple of years pass by and David passes away and this guy Tim is working hard and he has no choice but to call John D. Rockefeller. Now, it's not that easy to just pick up your phone and call John D. Rockefeller. So he kept calling the Rockefeller Center for weeks and weeks. And one day, consistently calling it. One day, the receptionist passed the phone to the secretary. And he kept calling the secretary for weeks and weeks. And one day, the secretary told John D. Rockefeller, this guy claims to be your childhood friend's son. He wants to meet you. What do I tell him? So John D. Rockefeller tells the secretary, call him to the hot dog stand in Central Park on Thursday at 2 o'clock. So secretary conveys the message to Tim, and Tim is like, John D. Rockefeller once he could send me a private jet or a limo, taken me to a Michelin star restaurant. Why is he calling me to a hot dog stand in Central Park? Anyway, he gets there and, at 2 o'clock, he's waiting there and John D. Rockefeller comes in with his entourage and says, okay, son, how are you doing? Tell me how things are. But before you do that, go buy 2 hot dogs and come. And this guy is like, I barely save nickel and dollar to come all the way here. And now this old man is asking me to buy hot dogs for him. Anyway, he goes, buys that, comes, and he's like, just having a chat. And then from there, they walk around Central Park. And right next to Central Park is the financial district. So they walk through the financial district. And right under the Rockefeller Center, John D. Rockefeller tells this Tim that, okay, son, all the best of luck in your life. Tell me how things progress and do well. This guy is like, uncle, what do you mean do well? I came to ask you for help and this is what I get. So John D. Rockefeller tells him, son, do you know who did you buy lunch for today? There are hundreds of people queuing up to buy lunch for John D. Rockefeller. When I was taking you in my arms around Central Park, hundreds of people were wondering, who's this guy with John D. Rockefeller? When I was taking to the financial district, dozens of bankers were peeping out of the window saying, who's this guy with John D. Rockefeller? And me right under my building, I'm bidding you goodbye. If all this doesn't help you, then God help you. You know, to me, this was the third lesson I learned in my life, where your network is your net worth. You know, and to me, some of the most cherished moments or milestones I've had in my personal life are the people I've associated with, the people I've met. I've been very fortunate to have met some amazing people who've transformed this planet and lives of almost billions of people. You know, and that's a very important lesson I learned at a very young age. But that then came a question of really raising the funding for my first venture. And my father went on to telling me a story, telling me another story, which became the fourth learning for me. And that was a story of an entrepreneur who was working as a sales executive in a really popular tailor shop in Manhattan, which was owned by this Chinese couple. And the Chinese couple didn't have any kids. So, you know, this guy was very hardworking. And this one day they wanted to sell off the shop in the prime location in Manhattan. And he told this guy that, okay, we're going to pack this shop up. And he's like, can I buy the shop? He's like, but, you know, you work for us. You're our sales executive. And he's like, please, I worked really hard for you guys. I worked honestly. Give me the first right to buy this. They said, yeah, sure. So he went to, the Hyatt family and said, I have a prime piece of location in Manhattan. I'll get you the funding. Are you interested in putting up the hotel? And he made the feasibility for it. And they said, sure. He went to the bank and said, I have a prime piece of location in Manhattan. I have the Hyatt family wanting to set up a hotel. Are you ready to finance it? So bank was ready, hotel was ready, land was ready, and became chairman of that company. So the entire notion of knowing the power of structuring deals is something I learned at a very, very young age. And that sort of gives me the high at all times whenever I'm engaged in not only deals, but day-to-day decision-making processes, always looking at particular issues at a particular different way of how to constantly always making it a win-win for everyone. The fifth and the last thing I want to share with you is, so again, you know, at that age, right after those two stories, I went on to starting a company my first company when I was 19 and a half, almost 20, which broke even in 3 days. That's another lesson altogether for another real school time. But, you know, going forward, you're still young. You're constantly meeting with people almost double your age, 3 times your age, far more wisdom, far more experience. And that time I realized, you know, the entire value of and the art of perception management. You know, back in India and South Asia, we have this particular dish called vada pav, which is like two breads, and in between you have this patty. So I was with this really respected entrepreneur of one of the largest entities in India, and we were having lunch in this dhaba. It's a small place to eat just on the roadside, and he put a vada pav in his Jaguar, and he asked someone to get McDonald's, and he put right next to the vada pav, and he said, "Son, tell me, what are the input raw materials that go into this?" So I said, both have bread, both have potato, peas, onion. So you would say that the raw material price would be the same for both? I said, yeah, pretty much. Maybe McDonald's would be 10% more. He said, but what is the selling price of this? I said, 10 rupees. What is the selling price of McDonald's? I said, 100 rupees. He said, the day you figure out how to sell a McDonald's vis-a-vis a vada pav, that's the day you really master the art of perception management. So, you know, again, a wonderful, again, it's all because of my association and my dealings with a lot of people, a lot of successful people along the way in this journey till now. I have had these values and these learnings embedded in me that I'm sharing with you today. And I truly believe that this is the beauty of a concept like the real school, you know, that we get to listen to, I'm sure in the future, a lot more professionals, a lot more, you know, individuals who've made great impact, and individuals who've done relatively been successful in their work in life, who have earned and developed some form of contentment in their life that they're able to share with us. We guys are living in a very, very dynamic world, and that is why a couple of other things I want to share with you is traits which I think we need to have as an entrepreneur, as an individual is, and as a human being is being agile. You really need to be able to have that sense of being able to maneuver through problems and preempt problems if you want to really be successful. Set organizations in place knowing what the problems are, set systems in place knowing what the problems are, always working with the right people knowing that that could always be your biggest challenge, and coming up with products and ideas that not like me too, but which are clearly differentiating itself. So agility, adaptability, I think are more relevant in today's day and context. I'm also keeping in notion the time that I have, so I'm going to go a little bit more quickly. The second thing, and I think one of the most important lessons I've learned in my life, which came down from my grandfather, was, humility. The entire power of, you could be aggressive in your nature, but at the same time, it is so important to be humble. Have that sense of humility in you, which also means being a good listener. You can, and the day you tell yourself, "I know everything," I think that's the first day you are sort of digging your tombs, your grave. So humility is a very, very important trait and value I feel we really need to have. Um, Coming from humility, something that my purpose in life has changed is being compassionate. Um, After a while, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, once you've earned a particular degree of wealth, then and your wants are limited, then you go asking yourself questions beyond just organic, inorganic expansions to what else can I do to make this world a better place. And that's where compassionate comes in. And one of the other things which really resonates with what Real School is doing is, and I share this with a lot of my friends, is just signing a check or contributing to in terms of capital to a philanthropic is not just being having a sense of compassion. you know if you have a particular skill, if you have a particular experience, sharing that with the world without expecting anything in return is also being compassionate. It's also being selfless. It's also about encompassing that knowledge and that experience that you have. So I think humility, being compassionate, is very important. um, I think the sooner we all realize that, how we can set priorities to our life. You look into in the context of marble in a jar. Your life is like a jar, and your priorities are the marbles you choose. So for me, the most important thing is my health. So that marble would go right at the bottom of the jar. My family, my business, my close friends, my business aspirations, my so you fill up the jar depending on your own personal priorities. And once you've figured out those marbles, then whenever you pour a glass of sand in the jar, the sand is going to go and settle down in the jar on its own. That's everything else apart from your priority. So I think having that focus and that priority is also very, very important. To me personally, um, uh, something that really transformed my life when I was 24, 25 was when I found my teacher who was teaching me the entire art of Sudarshan Kriya, which is a form of meditation. And he took a glass of muddy water and said, just let it settle down. You can't see anything through it. And once the mud settles down, the glass, the water is clear. And that's exactly what meditation does to you. I think more and more of us are realizing that nowadays. And we've got technology, various yoga camps, various online sessions that helps us in meditation. And I've been doing it every day for the last uh, 12 years. And it's had a profounding impact in my life. Meditation. Life, as I always see it, is like a game of golf. The golf ball is your it's where you want to take your life. Your the golf clubs you want to use to shoot that ball out, the various skills you have, the various instruments you have, the various support, the environment that you've created, uh, you know where the hole is. There's a big flag there which your eyes are focused on. You keep practicing through your experience, and once you take that perfect swing, uh, just focus on the ball and let the swing do the talking. But like in our lives, don't ever forget to look around, because the view of the golf course, like our life, is so beautiful as well. Before I end my 30-minute talk, and then we'll probably get down to a little bit of Q&A, I think I've confined myself into a 30-minute talk, is that there's one particular formula that I really swear by, which I read in a book of Jack Welch called Straight from the Gut. And that formula is 4 E's wrapped around 1 P. The first E is energy. As an entrepreneur or even as a human being, whatever you're driven by, whatever you need to get, unless you have that inner desire, that fire in you to achieve it, you're not going to get anywhere. Second is energize. Having yourself getting that energy is not enough. You need to be able to be a good leader, to be able to give that energy, pass on that vision, make the people around you see the same vision that you have. The third is edge. You need to constantly differentiate yourself from what others are doing. Fourth is execute. Everyone can dream, everyone can have a vision, everyone can have a goal, but unless you have that ability to execute, you're going to be left nowhere. These 4 E's wrapped around 1 P, passion. You really got to find your passion, and that really comes down to the entire concept of ikigai, which I read very recently. It's a Japanese concept which actually asks you very fundamental questions on what is it that you actually love doing. um, what is it that the world needs, and what is it that you love doing, what the world needs, but you're good at, but also pays you well. Once you figure out these 4 things and you're constantly challenging yourself, I think you figured out the entire ikigai concept going forward. So this is a little bit I wanted to share with you all from my life till date. Thank you again, Real School, for giving me this opportunity for sharing my real life lessons, my real life experiences with all of you who've taken time um, to join me in this Real School class. Now over to you, Nadir. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Nirvan, thank you so much, brother. This has been a really good 30-minute inspirational talk. And we have a lot of questions that are coming in from the chat. Before we get to the questions, I want to just share a short story about how Nirvana and I know each other. So I was at Singapore Management University about 20 years ago in the first batch of that university when I met Nirvana. And the two of us hit it off immediately and we became, best of friends. Now, when I was in school, I realized while at university that I was learning more about business from Nirvana than I was from my professors. This is 20 years ago. This is a man who was learning business from his father, a really good, very sharp and very successful businessman, someone who was learning from the school of the real world. And I think this idea of real school probably may have started in my head unconscious to me 20 years ago when I started thinking about, you know, these professors, they're good, but they're teaching me theoretical concepts. Whereas here's a man who's actually doing business. And Nirvana was 20, less than 20 at the time, around 20. Okay, I won't give your age away, but you were young. And I was learning more from this young chap than I was from like these 40, 50-year-old professors. And ever since then, I've realized that I would rather learn from someone who's actually been there, done that, than to learn from a guy who's telling you about a textbook which has been printed, by the time it comes to press, everything that they've put in that textbook is already outdated. I mean, welcome to the real world, right? It's changing, it's moving so rapidly. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read some of the questions from the chat and I'll let Nirvana answer these. So, the first question is a question from Nepal and it's from someone called Siddhartha. And he has two questions. And the first question is, what advice would you like to give for an individual who has not a business family background, but is very keen on business? I mean, how do you start and grow? And the second question is, he wrote that the second question is very silly. As a billionaire, do you get any problem in your life? So those are the two questions, and over to you, Nirvana. One minute. I will have to, I believe, unmute Nirvana. So hold on a second. All right, while we wait, there we go. All right, Nirvana, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Nadir. Actually, real life experiences are important, but I also feel university textbook is sort of really gives you the foundation as well into theoretical knowledge and the various aspects of your professional life as well. So do not neglect that. This is important, but university and what you learn in school is also very important. To answer your question to Siddharth, what I would like to say is that we guys hear of startups and successes of e-commerce and some of the big names we hear of today, but don't forget that there are about 1,000 times more entrepreneurs companies that have gone there and failed. We don't hear of the bad stories. We hear of the success when we get inspired, which is fine. My constant message to the youth is don't be too desperate. Get yourself work experience, get yourself a proven track record. Even if you're starting off something small, think big, start small. Don't be too desperate to become big, because you lose sight on your real passion work that you're doing. Fundamentally, they always say you are a sum of the 4 people you always associate yourself with. In school, at university, it is so important. I'm talking about the youth, even while growing up. What you become as a person and the people you sort of associate yourself is so important. So always surround yourself with people who are like-minded. Always surround yourself with people who will be able to, who are complementary to you, who will be able to add value to your life. They always say that you only get smart if you're playing against smarter opponents. Right? You look at the case of Alibaba. Jack Ma came in and had 11 or 12 of his friends who had expertise in various fields come in and start off Alibaba. You talk about even Steve Jobs. He didn't know a thing of coding, but he got Steve Wozniak to come in and do the technology bit of it. He collaborated with like-minded people. It can give you dozens of examples. So to the youth, what I would like to really say is spend time learning, spend time constantly educating yourself. Believe it or not, till date, one thing I do every year that I set aside for myself is I set aside 5 days a year for myself on doing a short course of executive MBA at MIT or LBS or somewhere or the other, constantly learning yourself. So use this age to learn, use this age to gain experience, use this age to make mistakes, but most importantly, use this age and that experience and your idea to collaborate with people. That I think is a fundamental, most important thing, which is going to get you really, really far. And the second question,
the question was about being a billionaire and whether it poses any problems.
I think forget about being a billionaire or a millionaire, but I think if you have sort of define what you are, the sense of the entire benchmarking of being content in your life. To me today, I enjoy the most simplest things. Like I love the hours I get with my children. I love my home food. I love going and catching a movie in my free time. I love, just getting a game of golf or basketball, whatever it is. I mean, once you really define what is the level of contentment you have, I think then you sort of give away the 50% of the problem, because your expectations, you're defining your expectations you want in your life. You're defining, let me tell you, I have a very, very dear friend of mine whom who is the only son and of one of the wealthiest families in Thailand. But he's a monk. And we both were traveling, and he told me that firstly he was reading Financial Times. So I was like, why are you reading Financial Times? And he was like, why? Why can I not keep expanding my knowledge into Financial Times? He went to Oxford and Harvard and all of that before he became a monk. But he said, you know what? Whenever we are starting off in this of our lives, we want to, in 5 years' time, build this dream house of ours. And we are so busy working towards building that dream house that after we built it, we are ecstatic. We are very happy after that 5 years. But what we've lost out in that 5 years is something which we cannot bring it back. So, once you start realizing that true happiness and true contentment comes in the simplest of things in life, I think you alleviate and the problem starts going away more and more. I don't personally see the question as problems. You have challenges, but then again, life and business experience is like the ECG graph, right? It keeps going up and down. If it's flat, then you're finished anyways. So you have challenges, and that's what gets you going. That's what keeps agility, adaptability. Problems, I think so far I can't think of any problems having amassed or being part of a family or a company that has got certain achievement. I don't see myself as having any problems, but definitely there are a lot of challenges of different magnitude, different challenges in different environment, and you have to deal with it and you enjoy it.
Excellent. We have a couple more questions which I'm going to be reading out. Thanks a lot for that. How do you maintain maintain a routine such as meditation despite the unpredictable demands of your business? I'm going to ask two questions at a time because this is both from the same person, Dishi. What is your approach to handling challenging stakeholders or collaborators in your business where it felt like your vision was getting blocked?
So I'll go to the first one. So it's so easy, and it's getting more and more easier every day. And I really want to be able to thank the evolution of technology. Today, there are probably 10 things I have got to do at work or my home or things I've got to remember for my friends or my day-to-day life. I just key it into apps and technology, that the to-dos. My calendar and my schedule is something that that I use my technology for managing. And once you've really outlined your priorities in life, to me, a good state of mind, compassion, meditation is very, very important. So for me that's a non-negotiable. So I know that as soon as I wake up, before my meal, before I see my kids, before I leave for my office, I spend that 20 to 25 minutes meditating in my room. My family's understood that, my kids have understood that. So you got to keep defining what's non-negotiables for you in life. Maybe running in the morning, you really love doing that, and it's helped you. So you prioritize that in your life, and you ensure it that you religiously and as a routine follow it. They always say that if you do something for 23 days continuously, it automatically becomes a habit, right? So I think you got to start. It becomes difficult to form a habit, but once it does, then you got to keep escalating and moving it forward. So I started meditating probably 12 years ago for 10 minutes. Then I took it to 15 minutes. Now I've taken it to 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and I'm fine. But you got to really outline the priorities you have first, and then outline the non-negotiables for you, and then you're able to manage everything. You sometimes, I remember seeing a photo of Barack Obama back in the days taking his dogs out for a walk in the White House, and here you are thinking, oh my God, the most powerful guy, leader of the free world, how does he have time to do that? So if you're able to get the right system, the right people, prioritize your personal time, professional time, you're able to do everything. And time management is, again, one of the most important things an entrepreneur, especially a human beings, in a very challenging environment, needs to figure out. So the second question, I didn't really get that, Nader. So if you can repeat that, please.
Sure. The question was, it was about, what is your approach to handling challenging stakeholders or collaborators in your business where it felt like your vision was getting blocked?
It's an excellent question, and it sometimes is so easy. A lot of times we lose sight on it. But if you always go in with the notion of creating a win-win in a situation, you always seem to get your way. But if you're going in with a particular discussion or a particular something you've got disagreement in, but you're not going in there with a win-win situation, you're not going to get too far. So I think having that attitude of always in partnerships, creating a win-win attitude, showing your partner how it's going to be. Like whenever I'm discussing with my colleagues or with my partners, and we have conflicting ideas, we have one simple formula. I tell them, either you convince me or I'll convince you. But once we have in this closed room convinced each other, and I might be wrong or I might be right, we are walking out of this room with the same mindset. So, if you're able to have a very open-minded discussion with the entire ideology that it's going to be win-win, you're never going to lose out. And you're very rarely going to have confrontation. I think that's the best experience I've had.
Well, we have a question here to rank in order of importance, in your opinion, a successful business. So there's 5 things. Which is the most important? Networking, strategy, funding, evolving, resilience.
So, your hand has 5 fingers as well, right? And sometimes one finger is bigger than the other one. So, I mean, all of them in different scenarios and different environment is important. But fundamentally, in my experience, in my life, I've realized that your networking is changes the dynamics and changes a lot of things. And when I say networking, means just not meeting people. You must be able to have that ability to see what that other individual would also want to collaborate with you. How will it benefit them as well? You can't just go in with single-minded saying, what can I extract out of that? That's not networking to me. So I think that's very important. Being resilient is obviously important, but these are different traits and characters or values you need to have going forward anyways. And a lot of them I share in my talk as well, which also becomes part of that entire success formula, 4 E's wrapped around 1 P. Being agile, that story of John D. Rockefeller where Tim was, persistently not giving up, reaching out to John D. Rockefeller. So you can take out a lot of learnings you have from a short story like that.
This is a very interesting question, and it's very relevant for the times. What was the first thing you did when the pandemic started? And how did this action affect your businesses, team, and customers?
Okay, this is a really good question, but I would like to go back 5 years, right? So where Nepal was hit with an earthquake, probably one of the largest the world's seen. I think it was 7.8 Richter in magnitude. We lost close to 10,000 people, 700,000 homes were gone. I was sitting in my factory in central west Nepal, where the impact wasn't much because it was more towards the eastern part of Nepal. Now, when we heard about the news of the earthquake in the city, capital city going towards eastern Nepal, we could either evacuate our family teams and move them to central western Nepal, or we could go to Kathmandu and start folding our sleeves. And that compassion that we had for giving back, the CSR, the philanthropic initiative that we had, we could start doing something and helping everyone in the country, right? So within 3 hours of the earthquake, because our families into schools, we have 12 schools in Kathmandu city, we converted the schools into relief camps. Because we are producing food and water and juice, we could literally provide unlimited from our factories, unlimited supply of food to people who are suffering. Because we are into healthcare, we could provide immediate medical relief. Because we are into construction and into real estate, we designed the first prototype of a house, a transition shelter, in 14 days and delivered it. In 1 year's time, we built 3,000 homes, 55 schools, 25 digital classrooms, 25 clean water treatment plants. We reconstructed an entire village, which was the epicenter of the earthquake, and trained about 7,000 people. This is all done in 1 year because our entire philanthropy runs in the backdrop of power of leveraging what you have and the power of networking with the people who've got that know-how and collaborating with them and getting that to the particular initiative. So during pandemic, when pandemic hit gradually and we were seeing things were getting serious in Nepal, before it even got serious, we had already started with our team on the ground, we have some 2,500 salespeople on the ground. We'd already started distributing, the PPE materials, the medical kits, the sanitizers and all. People were like, what are these guys distributing? It's only a month later that people understood what we were doing. So preempting a problem and already finding a solution for it is what we were doing. Leveraging our network and our infrastructure and working with partners like the Gates Foundation, Jack Ma Foundation, we were able to distribute and get medical relief immediately. With the Gates Foundation, we immediately started working on a Center for Prevention and Control for Infectious Disease Center, because our country didn't have one, like the CDC equivalent of America and Nepal. We knew that by the time the government is such a large ship, that by the time the government was reacting to it and planning, it would take them years. But for us, in 2 months' time, we'd already started planning our first satellite hospital. We had already partnered with the world's largest infectious disease center in Bangladesh called ICCDBRD, where they had already got 12 doctors who wanted to come to Nepal to help us out with the control and prevention of infectious disease, because COVID was just the beginning. You have other diseases that go on. So, we had already started engaging on initiatives like that. So that's what we did. And that I extremely feel proud, because I was leading that initiative with my foundation team. And I spent a lot of my time in our foundation work. And that sort of gives me, it's become a purpose for me growing our wealth more and more, because I know a lot needs to be done in our country. And the only way our family, our foundation can make a difference is if I am able to generate more wealth. Is only then when I can give more. So, that's what I'm driven by. And the example, what you asked me a question on, what did you guys do in pandemic, is exactly what we did. We just responded and leveraged our private sector thinking and leveraged what we had, and we're still evolving and continuously working on things which the government or other stakeholders aren't able to do.
Excellent. We have a question here. How do you forge and build good and trusting relationships?
I've frankly very rarely seen a CV of anyone that I work with. I'm assuming the question is relating to professional life. I believe someone with the right attitude is I would give them a much higher mark than someone with higher competence but a wrong attitude. So I'm someone who is constantly like, I'll most of my time have my engagement with my colleagues off-site. So probably in a week's time, I'm having at least a meal with one of my CEOs, and the real challenges and the real solution comes over that lunch meeting, which is not in our office, So I think creating that environment and really giving your colleagues, your partners, that comfort level and that trust that you can speak your heart out. You can, if there's a problem, speak about it now, that we'll jointly find a solution to tackle that. If you're able to create that environment for your people, you automatically get in the zone of being collaborative, the true sense of being collaborative, so that's what I constantly do with my team. And I guess whether it's no matter who it is in our organization, everyone in our organization at least knows that I have an open door policy. If you're part of our company, you have a problem, you have anything, you can just walk into my office and tell me. And if it's in my power or capacity to help out, I'm going to do everything, because you're part of my family. You're part of my group family, and I'll do everything in all genuinity, and people see that after a while. And I guess over a while, you've got to earn the respect from people. You've got to reciprocate, and you've got to make them feel comfortable. There's a story of J.R.D. Tata, who had a really loyal secretary. And the secretary was getting late for work because she had to also drop her kids off to school. So she called up and said, "Do not let go of your work. You please come to your office on time and complete your work." And later on, she found out that he had gone to her home, picked up her kid, dropped her to school, and then come home saying that you should not miss out on your. If you had done your time management well, you would have, fulfilled your responsibility towards the organization and towards my work that I've given to you. So, being that person who goes out of your way in not just keeping a strict professional relationship, but going that one step of emotionally really connecting with people goes a long way.
We have a very interesting question here. What are the 05 pillars to being a successful entrepreneur, father, son, husband, and a good human? It's a very deep question. I hope we have a couple of questions in 7 minutes left, but this is the question I thought I'll pick up for now.
So wife is very easy, right? Just give her the credit card. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that. I think it's a very important question. I'll straight away go to first my wife. Before we got married, we were seeing each other, and we had this one simple rule. The rule was that she always said that I'm never going to step on your ego. As a man, I'll never step on your ego. And I had made a rule that I'm never going to hurt your emotion as a woman. So to me, for us, both of us, this simple formula has, touch wood, so far taken us a long way. You're asking about my role as a father now, right?
Yeah, father, husband,
husband I've
entrepreneur,
talked about.
son, and a good human. That's right. This is a tough question that someone here asked.
So husband I talked about. Father, I think it's when you're seeing like we were having this conversation last night, and this very dear friend of mine asked me, what is the most magical moment you've had in your life? And it was for sure the time I held my daughter when she was born, right? That was, I mean, whenever we have I have a conversation with her, it's an unconditional love that I think we share with each other. So I think the day you start unwinding and start behaving and becoming and understanding them as a kid, rather than trying to grow them, make them grow too fast, I think you'll really do well in life. I'm constantly learning so much from my daughter. My son is too young. She's so inquisitive, like most children. She's got, I mean, they're just living for the present, right? And earlier, before this call, I was telling Shares as well that don't grow up, it's a trap. So I think that's something which, if you're going on telling yourself that there's so much to learn from your kids, I think you become friends and you grow again together with them. You restart your journey as a child with it. As an entrepreneur, I think you got to really understand what you're driven by. I'm driven by the fact that I have a daughter, and in South Asia, there's huge insecurities for girl child. There's huge education problem for girl child. There's huge health related problems for girl child. So as an entrepreneur / philanthropist, I want to do more and more because I'm very clear that I want to set up, probably in 5 years from now, the region's largest children's hospital, which will give free health services to girl child or children, specifically girl child, provide specific girl child education because of the entire sense of equality in this world that we need to have. Security. I mean, something that breaks my heart all the time is when I hear of young children, especially in north part of India, getting raped and all of that. It really annoys me and really, really pisses me off. But I'm not able to do anything about it. So, I'm that's what I want to be working towards going forward.
That's a great that's a great vision to go for. I have another 3 minutes. I'll pick up this question that I saw here. How do you develop a meaningful network?
Once your purpose, vision, and intent is clear, then there's so many different forums. So your network can start straight from your school or your university, or the children of your parents or your parents' associates, or today people all around the world join things like Lions Club, Rotary, JCB, or even we have the SMU alumni, stuff like that. So you've got to participate if you want to go there and meet people. You've got to make yourself be felt visible, if you've got to network, you've got to speak the right thing at the right time. If you've got to, if you want to network, you've got to know what the other person also would want, and you need to bridge that. So, just networking and finding the right platform is just maybe 50% of the question you ask, and a lot of that exists. A lot of forums exist. You go to a particular dinner party or a particular social thing, you'll meet a lot of new people. You need to have the desire to meet new people. And again, if you've realized, if you meet certain people who are drug addicts, you'll always see them hanging around with drug addicts. What we do, believe it or not, something that's worked for us so well in our company is, if I want another good salesperson, I tell my best salesperson that, boss, find me another salesperson for this company. And he always lands up finding me a great sales guy, because he's always in that group of people who are as good as him. So why reward an external HR agency when I could do that to my own people? So I think networking is one aspect of that, but also knowing what to say when and touching the right nerve is also a very important factor as well.
All right, we have 1 minute. I'm going to ask you one more question. What characteristics or traits do you believe successful people have in common? So give me three traits.
I think the 4 E's wrapped around 1 P. That fire in their belly. That strong desire, that they just see that bullseye, that one goal. Every successful people, I feel, see that goal, and till the time they achieve that, they are not going to give up. So that comes persistent, that seeing that goal and not giving up. When you have that fire in your belly, that burning desire, that till the time I achieve that, I'm not going to give up. I think that's one. The second thing is that successful entrepreneurs always have a sense of compassion. They'll always want to make a difference in this world beyond their organization or a for-profit company that they've created. They'll always want to go that they'll always want to take that one step forward and see how they can make a world a better place through their company products and services, or through their philanthropic initiatives. And third thing is, I've always seen that, so first one was got to do with hard work. The third one is, again, humility and honesty. I mean, we talk about it very vaguely, but I've seen this trait in, and I can list 10 people who I've met who have this honesty in their eyes, in their way when they do their work, which speaks in the DNA of their company, in the value of their company. When you have a conversation with them, it just, that energy just radiates to such an extent where that honesty is so true. I've seen these 3 things which resonates with my definition of successful entrepreneurs.
And with that, I got to say thank you so much, Nirvana. This has been an outstanding session. Really, really honored and privileged to have had you as the very first speaker on Real School. Thank you all very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you all for this. Thank you again. This is the first time we're doing this, Leonard. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for joining and being part of the Real School. I don't know if I've done justice, but to being the first speaker at Real School, but at least it was my responsibility and my duty as Nader's friend to share my experiences, views. There's a lot I need to learn. There's a long way I have to go, but I hope in this short talk I've been able to, with my little bit of experiences and what I've learned, been able to make a difference in your life, because that's what it's all about. Thank you so much for taking out time, being a part of this thing. I can see a lot of really amazing questions, and I think Nader has sort of got this clock of 1 hour. So cheers to all of you. Stay safe, stay happy, and don't forget to smile.
Thank you all.